in theory, we might have a lot of guys returning from injury on week 14. We've got Tee Higgins in the loading column. We've also got Amarian Hampton in the loading column as well. Trey Benson, I really do think we kind of just need to hang this one up. I really don't think it's going to happen. It makes me sad for sure, but it does kind of just feel like it's not happening. I mean, the guy, I think something happened last week and, he had some sort of setback. Because the bottom line is, last week he was practicing in a limited fashion. And ever since last week, I think it was like Friday, he didn't practice. And ever since then, it's just been non-participations. So very much a bummer on Trey Benson, but he's not the only one. I mean, we've definitely got plenty of guys who could come back as soon as this week. So I think it's going to be an interesting week to keep an eye on for a multitude of guys. So what I need you to do is go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support, and we are going to answer a bunch of Week 14 fantasy questions tonight. And I'm excited to get into it because this is the playoff push. I mean, this is when all this stuff matters most, is when we're fighting for playoff seeding. And I will just say this really quick before we start answering questions. I can't tell you enough. If you are in a league that has playoffs starting in week 14, you've got to fix that next year. I'm in one of those leagues personally, and I freaking hate it. Like, I've got Christian McCaffrey in that league, and I'm playing as the number 3 seed without McCaffrey and without Travion Henderson this week. It's not right. Playoffs should be week 15 through week 17 to eliminate bye weeks and to maximize the upside of players who are on playoff contending teams. Bottom line, end of story. So if you are here tonight and you have one of those situations, you need to fix it. Jeremy Torres, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Andrews or Gadsden, full PPR. So without having the tight ends nailed down from a rankings perspective this week, I definitely can tell you that I'm leaning with Mark Andrews. And there's a lot of things going on with Gadsden right now. The last several games, it's been just kind of falling apart. And this is kind of, I remember saying this with people with Quentin Johnston who were trying to bench him. I was telling him, this guy, he's not all of a sudden this new find. He's been with the team the entire offseason. He's been through the program. Like, he's just getting an opportunity now, but that doesn't mean he's just making Quentin Johnston go away. And he's kind of gone away the last several weeks. So I'm fading Gadsden right now, and Andrews is in a good position this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matchup is great, and the guy just signed a big extension, 3 years, $39 million. Not that really matters, but I think it just kind of reinforces the commitment they have to Mark Andrews as a key piece to the offense. And whether you like it or not, even through Lamar's bad time this year that he's had, he's still been targeting Andrews. So to me, again, without having things finalized, for me, it's going to be Andrews. K-Sum, what's going on? Pick 2, please. Bucky, Gibbs, and Harvey. So I think that Bucky and Jahmyr Gibbs this week, they're two guys that ultimately I have a lot of confidence in. And from the perspective of matchup, I do think that both of those guys have good opportunities this week, right? Like, we've got Bucky taking on the Saints this week, and we've also got Gibbs taking on the Cowboys this week. I don't see how it doesn't work out to a certain perspective, because I think that Gibbs in particular, he's going to be a part of the offense, which is going to be, it's going to be really just condensed into a couple fantasy options, since they don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta. They've got Jamison Williams, they've got Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's basically it. So he's kind of being forced into a really tough spot this year, or this week, I think. But it's going to pressure turns diamonds, right? And I think that Jahmyr Gibbs has a real chance to be a diamond this week, not because he'll be efficient on the ground, but because they'll get him a lot of passes. So Gibbs is in. But it's hard to bench Harvey, I will tell you that, because I'm big on Harvey this week, actually. I'm pretty much ready to commit to him. But I will say this, I do think there's still that element to this one where it's, like, tough to know if he's going to last as there's, like, full-time, like, 90% lead back. And with Bucky, we do know that. Like, Bucky is a guy that we do know for a fact is going to be their lead back. So against the Saints, it's a matchup I don't want to avoid. So I'll go Bucky and Gibbs. Okay, next we have Jeremy Torres again. RJ Harvey or K9 full PPR. Yeah, this week I'm going to go with Harvey. If you haven't seen my full top 30 running back rankings on the week, I would suggest to go watch that after this live stream. I am of the belief that RJ Harvey is not particularly in a split backfield right now. I think that my prediction last week was that against a weaker opponent, they were going to give RJ Harvey the bulk of the carries and the bulk of the work to get his confidence going for the playoffs, because you can do that against a lesser opponent. This is another one of those weeks where they could do the same thing. I mean, the Broncos are taking on the Raiders. That's an ideal matchup to get your young running back some confidence off of an already good week. And he could be rolling into the playoffs with a lot of confidence. The NFL playoffs, that's for sure. And with Kenneth, we just know the story. Like, there's no hope that Kenneth all of a sudden breaks out and takes over the backfield at this point. Like, what you see is what you get in Seattle. Kenneth has a, 8 to 7 point floor with a 15 to 17 point ceiling in most weeks. Sometimes he'll give you 20, but it's very rare. With RJ Harvey, he can give you 25, like, very easily. So, yeah, to me, it's easily RJ Harvey. Roundup, baby. Indeed, roundup, baby. We are. Make sure to start a start-sit poll here while we're talking about this, because it's free to vote and it's free to start your own poll on FS Roundup. It's also the quickest way to get live feedback and results from everybody about what you should do with your own decisions. And if you refer a friend to us and you both get a premium subscription, you guys will both get a free first month. So there's a lot of things that we need to take advantage of as we close out this season here. Jeremy Torres says, let's go. Playoffs, baby. I made it in. Thank you. No, you always say it's us that pulls the trigger, but you help, period. Well, I appreciate that. And like I always say, I just like to be along for the journey. I mean, it's really, the journey is the fun part in fantasy football. Like, of course, championships is what you're playing for, but the journey is the fun part. And I am, seriously, just a guy who just sits here and talks. So, like, you can listen to me, you cannot listen to me. Doesn't always work for everybody. Works for some people. I'm just here to help as I can. So, you guys are the ones doing it, but I appreciate that. Tiger, what's going on? Judkins or Harvey, PPR, and Jared Goff or Burrow for the rest of season and fantasy playoffs week 15 and 16. I have Lamar, and I'm stuck. I do not envy you, my friend. Lamar has been a complete disaster. And, I was kind of thinking about it like this. With Lamar, there's obviously that 30-plus point ceiling game that kind of hangs over your head if you were to bench Lamar, right? Like, that's always a possibility if you get primetime Lamar in his complete best moments. But I feel pretty confident after watching that Bengals game in saying that I don't think it's going to get back to that. I really don't. I think what we see is what we're going to get from now on with Lamar. Lamar is a guy whose mobility is not there right now. And the problem with Lamar is that he's not a Joe Burrow. He is not a, in previous years, Patrick Mahomes type, to where he's going to slice you for 300 plus yards on the, through the air and like 3 touchdowns through the air. That's not really Lamar's game. Lamar's game is built off of his athleticism. That is his greatest asset as a player because it opens up the pass so much. Without that threat, the fantasy upside completely, I don't want to say evaporates, but it significantly shrinks. And so for me personally, like, I think of Goff as obviously not the best option, right? Like, Goff is not by any means some tremendous option moving forward, but I think he's better than Lamar. Like, what I'm trying to say is I don't think people should drop Lamar because the name value is there. People are going to pick him up. But my thing with Lamar is I don't really have as much of a problem putting him on my bench at this point. And I'm usually one of those people who says ride your stars into the playoffs. Lamar has not helped. And this is not one of those. Lamar is a star in the NFL in most situations, but you have to take things for how you see them. Same thing applies to Justin Jefferson. I have no problem benching Justin Jefferson if you've got better options. And I think of Goff as a better option, and I certainly think of Burrow as a better option. So, personally for me, I think week 15 and 16, let's look at both their schedules. Lions, I know the Lions have a tough schedule, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So, that's 18, 17, 15, and 16. They have the Rams and the Steelers. So, one of those is tough. The other one is pretty easy. So, we'll keep that in mind. The Bengals, unfortunately, do not play the Steelers anymore. So, that's tough for them. So, they play the Ravens and the Dolphins, which are, in theory, two really good matchups. I think I'm going to take Burrow. I was really impressed with Burrow coming off the injury and playing in that first game back against the Ravens. Judkins or Harvey? Again, I hate to bench Harvey in this situation because I do think that his matchup is one to take advantage of, and I think the same thing for Judkins to a point as well. The Browns, who are they playing? I'm blanking on who the Browns are playing. Browns are playing the Titans. Yeah, both of them have a good matchup. So it's not like either one has a superior matchup. They both have good matchups. The one thing with Judkins that gets me is that we know that the guy is the starter. And we know that he's not only the starter, we know that he is their lead back and their workhorse. RJ, we still have that question of, is he a workhorse? But the upside of the offense is so much better. I think I got to go with my fundamental belief here, which is upside is king in fantasy football. And it is. And so, therefore, I'll go against my rankings because if you go to the comparison feature, I just did the running back rankings today. Quinshon Judkins is a higher ranking than RJ Harvey this week. But it's not by that much. And I can justify playing RJ Harvey in this one because of matchup. So I think I am going to take Harvey because he's got the better offense, and I would say the matchup is just as good, if not a little better. Adrian Martinez, what's going on, man? Good to see you in here tonight. Hey, Ryan, is Trey Benson droppable in 14-team half PPR? Is it worth picking up Mike Evans? If Egbuka doesn't do great, does that mean Godwin will take over? So the last question, I can say this with confidence. I don't think that Emeka Egbuka is just going to go into the void. He's not all of a sudden just going to become this irrelevant player who we don't hear from again until next year. That's not going to be the case. I have said this all year, and I will stand by this even through the tough times that they have been over the last month or so with Egbuka. What Egbuka did for them, and what he continues to do this, is he's developed such a big role in this offense that you can't really take away. Even last week, for example, this is the perfect litmus test because that was Godwin's first week back. Well, guess who led the team in targets? It was still Emeka Egbuka last week. So it's not like Emeka Egbuka just became irrelevant with Godwin back. And I get what you're asking, which is it's not necessarily about last week. It's more of an accumulation. If Godwin continues to perform better on his targets, will he start to earn more over Egbuka? It's possible, but I don't think it's that likely because Godwin is a guy that I don't view as electric and explosive of an athlete as Egbuka is at this point of his career. So I don't feel like that's what we're going to see. I do feel like what we've seen from Egbuka, it's probably the best is behind him. But I do still think that he can score another 20-plus point game one or two more times. I do think that because they're just not going to all of a sudden just throw him to the curb. That's just not going to be what happens. Like, at worst, he'll be a highly targeted wide receiver 3. So that's kind of what I think about that one. So the first question was, is Trey Benson droppable? Oh, man. It really makes me sad, dude. But, yeah, I think he is. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, if you're in a league that has, I don't know, 4 IR spots or even 2, like, it's not worth dropping him just to drop him, right? Because there still is the chance that he could come back. But if you've got 1 IR spot and you've got 2 other guys who are out, or if you have no IR spots at all, then you kind of just have to at this point. You've held Benson for so long in hopes that he returns, and nobody's talking about it, but I think he suffered a setback in his injury because last week he was practicing and progressing in practice to a limited fashion. And I remember saying this like 2 weeks ago at this point. There was one of those practices that he came back for. I think it was the first practice that he returned for. And I read a report that was saying that he was like in between drills, like not even full practice, just in between drills, like leaning over and like grabbing his knee and like readjusting his sock because he basically was getting discomfort in that knee. And I remember reading that and thinking, man, that is not a good sign. I don't think at this point with the non-participation in practice, I think, what is it? 3? I think it was like 3 straight practices have been non-participants. It's not a good sign. I don't think that this recovery is going well, and I think he needs to just get shut down. And I think that honestly might happen because they've got like I think less than a week to activate him, to take him off the IR because his practice window has been open for several weeks. So I do think they're at a point right now where they're actively debating, do we even bring him back this year? And like I said, if you've got 4 IR spots or 2 IR spots, then it's not really worth dropping him just to drop him. But if you only have 1 IR spot and you've got several players who could be put in IR, or you just have no IR, then it kind of is what it is at this point. You've got to make room and tough decisions have to be made at this time of the year. And is it worth picking up Evans? I would say so. Let me look into Mike Evans because I saw that they could open up his practice window in theory, and it looks like they did because they just opened up his practice window and he was limited on Wednesday. So that makes it pretty easy. I think it's worth it to pick him up because if he's just out there on the waivers, you know what he can do. I mean, he could come in theory and get healthy and be a league-winning player for your team that you didn't have to pay a cent for, right? In theory. Would I play him immediately? No. First of all, I don't think he's playing this week. Second of all, the first week he comes back, I'd probably want to bench him just to see how he looks because it's not like he's looked fantastic when active this year. So play it by ear, but yeah, I think he's definitely worth picking up. Appreciate the super chat, man. That is how you get your question answered immediately, is you could do a super chat. Alias, what's going on, man? Good to see you in here. Shedeur versus Knicks. I think the Steelers will let Tomlin go. Oh, let's get into this. If yes, where do I think he goes? The Raiders? I'm going to save that one for last because this is going to be fun. Shedeur versus Knicks. I know it's frustrating with Bo. Like, I've got Bo in way too many places. Best ball teams, redraft teams, dynasty teams, you name it. I've got Bo everywhere. And it's frustrating to have Bo Nix. Because the reality with Bo is that most of the time, you can't expect him to hit one of his 20-plus point games. Like, most of the time, especially lately, it feels like it's just been minimal. And I'll tell you, like, a personal story. Like, I've got Bo Nix and Jordan Love on the same dynasty team. And trying to figure out who to start between those two guys on a weekly basis is hellish. Like, I don't know the last time I got it right. It may be like earlier this year when I was just constantly rolling out Jordan Love every single week. And he did have a good couple games. But the bottom line is this. Like, Bo has not been a really good fantasy quarterback for a long time. I mean, he has 17-point night against the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. Then he plays the Chiefs and has a 12-point game in Week 11 before the bye. Then he has a 7-point game against the Raiders. 17 again against the Texans in Week 9. Week 8 was the last time he crossed 20. So, I mean, it's been a while since we've seen a Bo Nix game that actually was really good. So, I get the frustration of having Bo. The thing with Shedeur, though, is that it's not like Shedeur Sanders has come in and just become this, like, really good fantasy quarterback. I mean, last week he played the 49ers, he had 10 points. And then the previous week he played the Raiders, and he had 11. And the Raiders game was in a dome, right? It's not like he had bad weather in Cleveland that he had to deal with. This past week, yes, it was in Cleveland. The weather was not great. And this game is also in Cleveland as well against the Titans. And I get it. It's the matchup, and, you want to take advantage of matchup. But at the end of the day, Shedeur has not been that good. Like, Bo Nix at least has shown you a 25-point ceiling, a 30-point ceiling. Whether or not he hits it this week, I honestly couldn't tell you. It's a mixed bag with him every week. Matchup, I definitely think he can against the Raiders every bit that he can hit it just as every bit as likely as Shedeur can hit a 20-point game, right? And Shedeur is not like the worst-ranked quarterback for me this week, but is he higher than Bo? No. And I would not play him over Bo Nix. I would play Bo. Here we go. Literally, here we go. Do I think the Steelers are going to let Tomlin go? It's really interesting because in previous years, like for years and years, I've been calling this one before you guys knew I even existed. Back in 2016, when the Steelers had prime Big Ben, they had prime Le'Veon Bell, prime Antonio Brown, I was calling for the Steelers to cut Tomlin back then. Because I saw what a lot of people are seeing now, which is that, hey, man, this guy's a defensive coach. Usually, the guy who, like, whatever side of the ball the head coach is leaning towards should be the best unit of the team, right? And what's funny is that Tomlin has never had a great defense ever since he took over. Like, if you go back to when he first took over the Steelers, and I'll repeat this from any rooftop, and any microphone you shove in front of me, I will utilize it to address that Tomlin came in and he basically took Bill Cowher's guys and took credit for having a great defense. And then as soon as those guys started retiring, guys like James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, Aaron Smith, Casey Hampton, James Ferrier, these guys you probably don't even know. But as soon as they started retired, that defense just got weaker and weaker and weaker. And the offense became the strength of the team. So the Steelers have become, this is not new, a team that's like just been weak defensively outside of like big turnover games. And that's fine. Like they can have these big turnover games. And that's why I always say like they're relevant in fantasy because of those big turnover games. But when it comes to team building, I don't think he's done a good job his entire career. Now, here's the thing is like the Steelers ownership, Art Rooney now, has allowed it to happen. Like he has allowed this whole thing, this complete circus to go on for a long time with Tomlin. And so for that reason, I would have ordinarily said, I don't believe they'll let him go. I believe they'll stick with him because all they know is just to put up with Tomlin and the garbage and the clown show as long as he keeps doing these never had a losing season type of records, which means nothing, by the way. It's hilarious. But now I'm hearing like what's telling to me is watching the rest of the media attack Tomlin the way they are because I've never seen it before in my life. And so, yes, we have gotten to a point where I think it's possible that they let him go. I think it is possible because I've never seen the media attack because what the media attack tells me is that ownership is growing impatient with him. Because oftentimes, like in previous years, Tomlin has been defended and shielded by the media for years. And I think that comes from Steelers ownership. Because if you don't believe that team owners have power over media, like you're kidding yourself. This is 2025. Like this stuff is real. So I do think it's possible now. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or when it's going to happen, but I will tell you this. All I can hope for as a Steelers fan is that the chance to fire him grow louder and louder as the weeks go, because that's the only chance we have of him getting fired. And if he got fired, there would be a story about him resigning or, mutually parting ways or retiring. Like they've done that with so many previous coaches. Bruce Arians went to Tampa after he retired. Actually, Arizona, and then Tampa. But he retired first. Dick LeBeau retired, then became the defensive coordinator in Tennessee after that. They've done this, like, they don't like to say, yeah, we fired you. Like, that's not what the Steelers like to do. So if they fire him, it'll be guised and disguised as a, we mutually parted ways, or I'm resigning or I'm retiring. And if he goes somewhere else, honestly, I don't know what he's going to do. Maybe it's because I'm tainted, but I honestly think of Tomlin as a guy that is not going to want to go to a project. And I'm sorry, but the Raiders are a project. I can't lie to you. I've heard a lot of Giants talk. I don't know. I would imagine he would probably want to go to a more established, well-run organization than one that's a big project and a big undertaking. Because I don't view Tomlin as the type of guy that can just make this big project something he does after he has dealt with so much stability and ownership for his entire life. I don't know. Probably not the Raiders. That's what I would say. I would say Giants are more likely than the Raiders, I would say. But I could be wrong. Appreciate the super chat. Sorry to bore you guys with the Steelers diatribes, because that team makes me mad. Tiago, what's going on? You think I should start Devin Neal over Bam Knight and Kareem Hunt? Yes, this is a fantasy football show, by the way. I'm always good for a Steelers question, but it is a fantasy football show. I think that I would definitely start both those guys over Devin Neal. Devin Neal is fine from a certain perspective. My philosophy when it comes to ranking running backs and even wide receivers is if you're on just one of the bottom teams in the NFL, like the Titans, the Browns, with the exception of Quinshon Judkins, I guess, the Saints are in there. If you're on just one of these god-awful teams, and especially if you're not that tremendous of a player, I'm not going to rank you above a backup running back like Tyler Algier, for example, right? Tyler Algier is a guy. Yes, Devin Neal is ranked above Tyler Algier this week because I think that he is the lead back, and it's take the work over the guy on the better offense in theory, I guess. But my point being is that Devin Neal is not a guy I would play over Bam Knight for sure, because Bam Knight is on a better offense. Say what you will about Arizona, but ever since Jacoby Brissett came in, they can score points. Their defense has become a problem. So I don't think of Bam Knight as the worst play. And same thing with Kareem Hunt. I mean, Kareem Hunt is the type of guy that in a different matchup I would be playing over Bam Knight. Bam Knight gets the Rams, but Kareem Hunt draws the Texans. So, I mean, those matchups are bad. And yes, Devin Neal in theory has the best matchup, but he's also on the worst offense of the bunch. Arizona, again, say what you will, they could put up points, and so can Kansas City, obviously. So I'd personally go with Bam Knight, then Kareem Hunt, then I would go with Devin Neal. Coffeeholic says, you made my top 5 most viewed channels this year on the YouTube recap. Thanks for the content. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate being a part of your journey this year. I can tell you this, All I care about is just being a part of the journey, man. That's all I really care about. I like being here and hanging out with you guys and talking fantasy football because I know my wife gets sick of me talking about football all the time. So it's definitely one of those things that to get out of her way and, just to talk about something that I love, you guys are the perfect outlet. So I appreciate all you guys being in here. And Coffeeholic, I know you've been with me for a while, so I appreciate that. Tiger M asks, do you think the Seahawks are playable for the rest of the year? Playoffs for weeks 15 and 16. Thinking about picking up the Chiefs for week 16 championship. The Seahawks are definitely playable. 100%. I mean, the Seahawks do not have, but I think one more tough matchup. Because I went through the Seahawks schedule a couple days ago when I was adjusting my rankings for defense for playoffs. Yeah, they're tremendous defense. I mean, the Seahawks defense is – here's my thing with the Seahawks, the Texans, the Broncos. These are elite defenses, right? And so from a certain degree, matchup doesn't matter as much to me. Like, if I get the Seahawks playing the Rams, I'd rather play them over the Dolphins playing the Browns in Cleveland. And that's just an example that came off the top of my head because they've already played each other. So that's not going to happen again. But my point being is that I'd rather play an elite defense against an offense they've already done really well against this year over a defense that isn't that good for fantasy in a matchup that could be good, but I could poke holes through. So the Saints, I mean, look at their schedule, man. What do you see on here that's tough besides the Rams? I mean, in theory, yes, the Panthers could be tough, but notice this. I want to point this out. The game time is TBD on December 28th. So that could be one of two things. They could play them at noon, or they could play them in prime time. And if you put the Panthers in prime time, we saw them shrink against the 49ers because this matters. And I'm not trying to insult Panthers fans or anything like that, but if you have a certain team that not many people just care to follow, and then you put them in the national spotlight when they're not used to it, they shrink. And that's what happened versus the 49ers, a team that's been under the bright lights a lot of times. So the Seahawks, their only tough matchup, and then the Colts, right? Like the Colts are a team I think I could poke holes through the matchup too. So yeah, for me personally, like I can understand your point trying to get the 49ers, I think, against the Raiders in week 16 when the Seahawks have to play the Rams. I understand that. No, the Chiefs play the Titans. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with doing that. Would I trade for it? No. I don't know if you're asking me about a trade, but I wouldn't trade for it. I do think it's fine to pick up, though, yeah. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Maui Candela, what's going on? Start Goff or Mahomes? Mahomes is in a tough position this week. Playing Houston is not a good proposition. I think I saw something that the Texans have not allowed like a top 12 quarterback finish like all year. I mean, they've been like locked down on quarterbacks this year because the Texans, like the Seahawks, are an elite defense. So Goff, to me, has more upside in this matchup versus Dallas because I've been pointing this out quite a bit. The matchup versus the Cowboys tomorrow night is one I would want to take advantage of because of the fact that Dallas's secondary is their weakness. It's still a weakness. Like Dallas's front seven, yes, has been really good, but at the same time, if they can find a way to protect Goff has a much higher ceiling than Mahomes. It's not even close. So Yeah, I get it. Like, the Chiefs season is on the line. I think we kind of, like, and I'm not blaming you for this. I had to readjust my thought process too. I think we have to readjust our thought process. The Chiefs just aren't that good. And I'm not saying the offense isn't. The offense can put up points, obviously. But the Texans, man, like, all I've seen is great defensive play for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And they have not let a quarterback score very many points in any given week. So, I mean, it's just not one of those I want to mess with if I can avoid it. You know, Mahomes is going to be lower ranked, and this kind of goes back to Josh Allen several weeks ago when he played the Texans, ironically. Josh Allen, I had him lower ranked that week, and people were like, why? Like, why would I play Stafford over Allen? Why would I play Darnold over Allen? It's like, well, because Allen's about to have a rough day. That's why. And he did. And because I stuck with my gut, I made that call. This is a gut call for me. I'd rather go with Goff. I think Goff, the only thing that can get in his way tomorrow night is if his offensive line can't protect him. But I think with their season on the line, they have every bit to fight for this game as the Chiefs do. So to me, Goff is the play. That's just my personal opinion. If you feel strongly enough about Mahomes this week, go with your gut. They're not drastically far off in the rankings, but I will say this. For me, it seems like you're asking questions, which is good, but it seems to me like you really want to play Mahomes, which, again, is fine because the argument you made about the lack of weapons is real. But to me, they still have two really good ones. Like Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to be important in this game. And they're really good players. So to me personally, I'd play Goff. But I understand it. If you go with your gut, because it does seem like you really want to play with Mahomes. I don't have them drastically far ranked apart this week because I do see the holes you could poke through Jared Goff. But I also will stand by the fact that I think this matchup would favor Goff over Mahomes. Appreciate the super chat, man. Tyler Sperry, what's going on tonight? Good to see you. I'm always torn between Fairbairn and Aubrey. Did great and should do great again. Fairbairn has been good too, but had an off week last week. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is that what it comes down to for me is that Fairbairn is a guy that I just trust his offense to stall out more. And ordinarily that's not like something you want to hear for fantasy options, but for kickers it's different, right? Like if the Texans hit a big play to Nico Collins for 25 yards and then they advance to the Chiefs 30-yard line, then they get two plays that go for 4 yards, but then they get sacked for 14, and they kick a 40 or 50-yard field goal. It's a good position to be in for Kaimi Fairbairn, and that's a position he finds himself in really often. The problem with Aubrey is that I've been saying this for a while, is not an elite fantasy kicker right now because of the fact that his offense is so efficient. It's nothing to do with Aubrey. It's not an Aubrey problem. He can hit from anywhere. But this team has been so efficient at or near the red zone that they're not kicking many field goals. And what often happens, and you've seen it with the Cowboys a couple times this year, is that they get in these positions and they've been so effective at moving the ball, they don't feel like anyone can stop them. So you get this brazen attitude from a coach who's like, you can't stop us. I'm going to go for it on fourth down. In previous years with McCarthy as the head coach, he would be the type of guy that would absolutely be like, hey, listen, I don't want to mess around and go for it on fourth. I'm just going to take the points because I know Aubrey's automatic. That's kind of the problem with a guy like McCarthy is he doesn't have – if you lose a guy like McCarthy and you move on to a more young and aggressive coach like Brian Schottenheimer is, then it takes away field goal opportunities from your kicker because he sees what everyone sees, which is Dallas' offense is moving the ball with ease. Why not go for it? He's kind of taking a Dan Campbell light approach in Dallas, where they've probably gone for more than you think on fourth down, which again minimizes Brandon Aubrey's weekly impact. Aubrey's floor is fine. It's not the floor that's the problem. I think he's always good for one long field goal a game, and he's obviously got the extra points on his side. When it comes to ceiling, Fairbairn is that guy. And I do think it'll be a lower scoring game because that's what the Texans drag everybody into. That'll be full of field goals, and that's the way they like to play. So for me, Fairbairn's the better option. Appreciate the super chat, man. Good to see you in here. Okay, we'll answer a couple more questions. Then I'm going to get out of here tonight. Tony Brental, what's going on? Debating dropping Gadsden for Watson. Wide receiver 2 this week is Pierce. PPR tight end is McBride. I've got no issue with that. Listen. I am always one for trading a guy before you drop him, right? Like for me personally, I think with a guy who has name value, and it's not that Rondé Gadsden has like tremendous name value. He's not like Brock Bowers or anything like that. He's not even Mark Andrews, but Gadsden has gotten enough name value in the fantasy space and he's shown like ceiling games to be a trade-worthy piece. Now, your trade deadline may have passed. A lot of people's already have. I'm in one league that doesn't have a trade deadline. You can trade into the playoffs. So kind of you can corrupt the system a little bit that way, but everyone holds their integrity for the most part in that league. But most leagues are not like that. Most leagues, you've got a trade deadline that you abide to. And so if you are at that point, then you've got to make tough decisions. And I would say that that's one of those decisions that makes a lot of sense. It seems like you've got a weaker wide receiver room, and you've already got McBride at your tight end spot who doesn't need to ever be like taken out of a lineup. With Jacoby Brissett, Trey McBride has been unbelievable. So McBride's never leaving your lineup. And in a lot of times, like I can't imagine playing Gadsden over Watson right now. It just wouldn't make sense. So, yeah, I'm fine with doing that. Tiago, when it comes to wide receiver, I have too many on bye and I need to start 3. Wilson, Myers, BTJ, McConkey, and AD Mitchell. I would assume McConkey, Wilson, and Myers, but with Surtain out, can't BTJ pop off? Surtain's not out again, is he? He just came back this previous game against the Washington Commanders, so I don't think Pat Surtain got injured either. So let's check on it. Yeah, I don't think he got re-injured, so I think he's good to go. So yeah, the Brian Thomas Jr. argument over because Pat Surtain isn't there is not a part of the equation. He is there. Whether he covers him all game or not, that remains to be seen. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Pat Surtain spends a lot of his day on Myers. I think for me personally that you've already got Myers too. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go with BTJ. Like, yes, you're right. McConkey, AD Mitchell, and Myers are going in. But Michael Wilson, like, I will say, definitely got off him a little bit because of the whole Marvin thing. Let's check on Marvin really quick, though. Because I know he left the game. Marvin can't stay healthy. He didn't practice. I'd play Michael Wilson, especially if Marvin is out. I just don't like the idea of having 2 Jags players in your lineup. Adrian, appreciate the super chat. How do you feel about Herbert at quarterback? Not great. Well, here's the thing. Herbert is a guy that is really tough. So it's not like I think he's going to miss a bunch of time or anything like that. But the guy has been beaten up this year because the offensive line is weak. And it's only gotten weaker as the season has gone on, leading to him breaking his non-throwing hand last week against the Raiders, of all teams. Now you get Philly coming to town, angry after 2 losses, with a strong front 7. And I'm just talking about this week, right? They obviously have to play the Chiefs one more time. They've got to play, I think, the Broncos one more time. Let's check on their schedule really quick. Chargers schedule. Chiefs, Cowboys, and Texans. That's 3 really tough front 7s. I will be honest here. Rolling out Herbert and nobody else at quarterback at this point feels like a risk. I want to buy in, and I do think that Herbert's ceiling is still good, but if you've got a Jacoby Brissett on your waivers, if you have a Matt Stafford, I can't imagine Stafford's on waivers. But point being is that there's a couple options I think are fine. Like Purdy is still out there on some waiver wires. Brissett is out there. Like there's guys that I would take and consider playing over Herbert. I'm not dropping Herbert as is. Like I'm not just like outright dropping Herbert or anything like that. But I definitely am nervous about the duration of the rest of his season. There's just too many issues with that Chargers offensive line. It's not a weapons thing, and it's not that if he was given a clean offensive line, I believe that he would still be able to slice and dice down the field because Herbert's a really good player. But the fact of the matter is the guy's had to run a bunch, and now with a broken non-throwing hand, if he continues to take pounding, which I would imagine he will if he plays, and I expect him to play, then it becomes a really big issue about his rest of season and the upside. So, yeah, I'm a little worried about it, to be honest. I would be searching for other options, not dropping him, though. Appreciate the super chat, man. Alias, good to see you again. So, lost this week. Please rank them. Godwin, Trey Tucker, Bam Knight, Jaden Higgins. Also, if Hampton plays, can I start both him and Vidal or only Hampton? It depends on what you've got. I would not imagine that you would be asking me if you could play both of them if you had 2 better options, right? Like, you may not even ask me about playing Hampton. Playing Hampton in his first week back is very sketchy. And I will tell you this. If Herbert misses this game, all bets are off on the Chargers running backs this week for me because they play the Eagles. I get it. The Eagles just got bullied by the Bears running the ball, but that's a different scenario. Bears have a much better offensive line, and their whole team is healthy. Their whole offense is healthy. The Chargers are anything but that. So if Herbert misses, I don't want to play either of these running backs. So to me, like playing both of them is a very scary proposition. Once again, Bam Knight is someone I would play over Vidal. I would play Algier over Vidal. I would play Corum over Vidal. Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard, Jordan Mason. Like, there's a lot of guys that I would play over Kamani Vidal because I don't want to play both Chargers running backs. Godwin, Trey Tucker, Bam Knight, Jaden Higgins. Bam Knight's at the top because I think he's a starting running back. So he's got to be at the top. Jaden Higgins versus Godwin was a relatively tough question for me when I was ranking wide receivers originally, but I settled on Jaden Higgins, and I'm pretty sure I did at least. Let me check. Jaden Higgins, Chris Godwin. Yeah, Higgins is 2 spots over Chris Godwin. I remember struggling with this one. But I would go with Higgins because I think that Jaden Higgins is a guy, I've discussed him a lot this year. Higgins is a guy that initially wasn't cutting it, but he's really stepped into a wide receiver 2 role that the Texans can trust. Like, they actually have a solid, reliable wide receiver 2 who has big play upside. Godwin, I don't see as much big play upside with these days. And they both have matchups that they could be taken advantage of. The Chiefs, not great passing defense. So I do think that matchup doesn't scare me like it would for a running back, for example. Like running back against Chiefs, not ideal. Wide receiver, just fine. So I would go Bam, then Higgins, then Godwin, and then Trey Tucker at the bottom, because Trey Tucker, to me, it goes back to my philosophy with like bad players on bad teams, right? Like the Raiders are, I'm sorry, but they're not great. The Tennessee Titans, the New York Jets, like if you're on a bad team, I have to factor that into the rankings because it just like the fantasy options and the upside are minimal. And with Trey Tucker, like ever since Lockett got there, like they're trying to reintroduce Dante Thornton. Trey Tucker has not been the player that I thought he kind of would be after Jacoby Myers left. So not an ideal situation with Trey Tucker. He's at the bottom for me. Appreciate the super chat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it off tonight. Just got really tired, so appreciate everyone being in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support, and go place a start-sit poll on our site. Completely free to vote, completely free to start your own poll. And I love you guys, and I'll see you guys, yes, in tomorrow's quarterback and tight end rankings. Appreciate you guys.